The internet, a sprawling digital landscape. It connects us, informs us, entertains us. We use it for work, for play, for staying in touch. It's become an essential part of modern life. We shop on Amazon, share moments on Facebook, and find information on Google. This is the internet we know, the surface we interact with daily. But what lies beneath? The internet we see is just the tip of a massive iceberg. Beneath the familiar websites and apps lies a hidden world, a world of encrypted data, private networks, and anonymous communications. This is the deep web. It's not inherently good or bad, it simply exists, hidden from casual view. The deep web houses sensitive information, medical records, financial databases, government archives. It's a place where anonymity is paramount. Whistleblowers use it to expose secrets. Journalists use it to protect sources. But where there is secrecy, there is also the potential for illicit activities. And then, there's the darkest corner of the internet. The realm of hidden marketplaces, criminal forums, and clandestine communication channels. This is the dark web, a place where anonymity breeds lawlessness. It's a dangerous world shrouded in secrecy and fueled by cryptocurrency. It's where cybercriminals operate, buying and selling everything illegal, drugs, weapons, stolen data, even contract killings. Accessing the dark web requires specialized software. The most common is Tor, short for the onion router. Tor encrypts internet traffic, bouncing it through a network of relays around the world. This makes it nearly impossible to trace the user's location or identity. It's like a digital invisibility cloak. The dark web isn't indexed by traditional search engines like Google. It operates on hidden services, accessible only through specific addresses known as onion links. These links lead to clandestine websites hosted on hidden servers. It's a labyrinthine world, difficult to navigate and even harder to police. The anonymity of the dark web attracts a diverse array of users. Privacy advocates, political dissidents, and journalists seeking to protect their identities. But it also attracts criminals. Hackers, drug traffickers, arms dealers, and those engaged in human trafficking all exploit the dark web's anonymity for their illicit activities. It's a world where pseudonyms are the norm, and trust is a valuable commodity. Users communicate through encrypted messaging apps, often using coded language to avoid detection. Transactions are conducted in cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, designed for anonymity and difficult to trace. The dark web has become a haven for criminal enterprises, operating beyond the reach of traditional law enforcement. Dark web marketplaces are online platforms where users buy and sell illegal goods and services. They resemble legitimate e-commerce sites with product listings, customer reviews, and vendor ratings. But the products on offer are far from legal. Drugs, weapons, stolen credit card data, counterfeit documents, and even malware are all readily available. The most notorious dark web marketplaces have gained legendary status. Silk Road, the first major marketplace, operated from 2011 to 2013. It was shut down by the FBI, but its founder, Ross Ulbricht, was sentenced to life in prison. The closure of Silk Road didn't stop the proliferation of dark web markets. New marketplaces emerged, each more sophisticated and difficult to shut down. These marketplaces function on a system of trust and reputation. Vendors build their reputations through positive customer reviews and successful transactions. They often use escrow services to protect buyers and sellers from scams. The dark web operates on a twisted version of supply and demand. The demand for illegal goods and services fuels the growth of these marketplaces, and the anonymity of the dark web makes it difficult to track down the perpetrators. By the early 2020s, a new breed of marketplace had emerged. These marketplaces were more sophisticated, more secure, and more difficult to penetrate. They utilized advanced encryption techniques, decentralized infrastructure, and sophisticated operational security measures. One such marketplace was Monopoly Market. Monopoly Market emerged as a haven for high-level drug traffickers. It specialized in synthetic opioids, cocaine, methamphetamines, substances fueling a deadly epidemic. It wasn't just the security that set Monopoly Market apart. It was the professionalism. Detailed product listings, customer reviews, refund policies, and escrow protections created an illusion of legitimacy. Vendors on Monopoly Market moved significant quantities of drugs, sometimes multiple kilograms per week. They used dead drops, custom vacuum sealing, and postal services to discreetly ship their illicit products, flooding suburban homes, city apartments, and rural towns with poison. They operated with an air of invincibility, believing themselves untouchable in the shadowy depths of the dark web. But law enforcement was watching. They were developing new techniques, new tools, and new strategies to combat the growing threat of dark web crime. and they were about to launch an operation that would send shockwaves through the digital underworld. An operation that would demonstrate that the dark web was not as impenetrable as many believed. An operation called SpecTor. The dark web, often perceived as an impenetrable fortress of anonymity, operates under the illusion that its users are invisible, their actions untraceable. The reality, however, is far more complex. While the technology underpinning the dark web, such as Tor, provides a significant degree of anonymity, it is not foolproof. Human error, technical vulnerabilities, and increasingly sophisticated investigative techniques make the dark web a far less secure haven for criminal activity than many believe. One of the key misconceptions surrounding the dark web is the belief that Tor alone guarantees anonymity. While Tor effectively masks a user's IP address, making it difficult to determine their physical location, it does not render them immune to tracking. Law enforcement agencies have developed techniques to de-anonymize users by exploiting vulnerabilities in the Tor network itself, as well as by monitoring exit nodes, the points where encrypted traffic re-enters the public internet. Moreover, the human element plays a significant role in compromising anonymity on the dark web. Many users, lulled into a false sense of security, engage in risky behavior that can expose their identities. Using easily guessable passwords, accessing the dark web on unsecured public Wi-Fi networks, or even revealing personal information in online forums can provide crucial clues for investigators seeking to pierce the veil of anonymity. The allure of anonymity on the dark web can lead to a dangerous level of complacency, particularly among those engaged in illegal activities. They may believe that the digital walls surrounding them are impenetrable, but the reality is that law enforcement agencies are constantly developing new strategies and technologies to expose and apprehend those who seek to exploit the dark web for criminal gain. The relationship between law enforcement and those operating on the dark web is a constantly evolving game of cat and mouse. As criminals develop new methods of concealing their activities, law enforcement agencies respond with innovative investigative techniques and international collaborations aimed at dismantling criminal networks operating in the digital shadows. This constant back and forth underscores the dynamic nature of cybercrime and the challenges faced by those tasked with upholding the law in the digital age. One of the key challenges in policing the dark web is the decentralized and often ephemeral nature of its infrastructure. Marketplaces and forums can appear and disappear quickly, making it difficult for law enforcement to establish a persistent presence or develop long-term investigative strategies. Moreover, the use of cryptocurrencies for transactions adds another layer of complexity, requiring specialized expertise in blockchain analysis and cryptocurrency tracing to follow the money trail. Despite these challenges, law enforcement agencies have made significant strides in combating dark web crime. Through a combination of traditional investigative techniques such as undercover operations and informant cultivation, and cutting-edge digital forensics including malware analysis and data mining, law enforcement has successfully infiltrated and dismantled numerous dark web marketplaces and criminal networks. The dismantling of Silk Road in 2013, followed by the takedowns of Alpha Bay and Hansa Market in 2017, demonstrated that law enforcement agencies were willing and able to collaborate on a global scale to target even the most sophisticated dark web operations. These high-profile successes sent shockwaves through the dark web, shattering the illusion of invincibility and underscoring the evolving capabilities of law enforcement in the digital realm. The dark web, often romanticized as a bastion of freedom and anonymity, comes at a price. The absence of regulation and oversight creates an environment where the most vulnerable members of society are at risk of exploitation. Human trafficking, child pornography, and the sale of deadly narcotics flourish in the dark corners of the internet, shielded from the scrutiny of law enforcement and the protective mechanisms of traditional society. While some may argue that the dark web offers a platform for free expression and the exchange of information unfettered by censorship, the reality is that this freedom often comes at a steep human cost. The anonymity that attracts individuals seeking to engage in illegal activities also provides cover for those who prey on the vulnerable. Human traffickers use the dark web to buy and sell victims, often children and young adults, with impunity. The global reach of the dark web facilitates the trafficking of individuals across borders, making it even more difficult for law enforcement to track and rescue victims from exploitation. The sale of illegal narcotics, particularly fentanyl and other synthetic opioids, has fueled a global public health crisis. dark web marketplaces have become major hubs for the distribution of these deadly substances, contributing to a surge in overdoses and deaths. The anonymity afforded by the dark web makes it easier for traffickers to operate with impunity, flooding communities with dangerous drugs while evading detection and prosecution. The dark web presents a complex ethical dilemma. While its proponents champion its potential for fostering free speech and protecting privacy, the reality is that it has become a breeding ground for criminal activity that inflicts real-world harm, particularly on the most vulnerable members of society. The challenge for law enforcement, policymakers, and technology companies is to find ways to mitigate the risks posed by the dark web without stifling the legitimate uses of this technology. The dark web, by its very nature, transcends national borders, creating a complex web of interconnected criminal networks that pose a significant challenge to traditional law enforcement structures. Criminals operating in the digital shadows can communicate, collaborate, and conduct transactions across continents with relative ease, exploiting differences in legal frameworks, investigative capabilities, and technological infrastructure. This interconnectedness necessitates a coordinated global response, fostering collaboration and information sharing among law enforcement agencies around the world to effectively combat the transnational threat posed by dark web crime. Recognizing the need for a united front against dark web criminality, international organizations such as Interpol and Europol have taken a leading role in facilitating cooperation and coordination among member states. These organizations provide platforms for sharing intelligence, coordinating investigations, and developing joint operational strategies to target high-priority targets and dismantle criminal networks operating across multiple jurisdictions. The creation of specialized cybercrime units within national law enforcement agencies has also been crucial in addressing the unique challenges posed by dark web investigations. These units bring together experts in digital forensics, cryptocurrency analysis, and cybercrime investigations, equipping them with the skills and resources necessary to effectively investigate and prosecute individuals and organizations engaged in illegal activities on the dark web. However, despite these efforts, significant challenges remain in effectively policing the dark web on a global scale. Differences in legal frameworks, particularly regarding data sharing and privacy, can hinder cross-border investigations. Furthermore, disparities in technological capabilities and resources among law enforcement agencies can create vulnerabilities that criminals exploit to their advantage. Addressing these challenges requires ongoing dialogue, capacity building, and a commitment to international cooperation to ensure that no country becomes a safe haven for dark web criminals. The rise of monopoly market, a seemingly impregnable fortress in the digital underworld, would inadvertently sow the seeds for its own downfall. Its success in attracting high-level drug traffickers and facilitating large-scale drug distribution operations would ultimately attract the attention of law enforcement agencies around the world, culminating in Operation SpecTor, one of the largest and most successful international crackdowns on dark web crime in history. Monopoly Market's emphasis on operational security, while initially effective in shielding its activities from scrutiny, would ultimately prove to be its Achilles heel. The marketplace's administrators, confident in their ability to maintain anonymity, became complacent, overlooking seemingly minor security vulnerabilities that would have devastating consequences. A single compromised server, a carelessly exposed IP address, a slip-up in communication, any of these seemingly insignificant errors could provide the crack that law enforcement needed to pry open the doors to Monopoly Market's inner workings. As Monopoly Market's user base grew, so too did the volume of data flowing through its servers, a treasure trove of information for investigators seeking to identify and apprehend those responsible for running the marketplace and profiting from its illicit activities. Every transaction, every message, every interaction left a digital footprint, waiting to be uncovered by those with the skills and resources to piece together the puzzle. Unbeknownst to the administrators and users of Monopoly Market, law enforcement agencies were quietly building their case, gathering evidence, and developing a sophisticated operational plan to strike at the heart of the marketplace. The takedown of Monopoly Market would require a coordinated global effort, involving law enforcement agencies from multiple countries working in unison to dismantle the marketplace's infrastructure and apprehend its key players. In the ever-shifting landscape of the dark web, where marketplaces rose and fell with alarming regularity, a new contender emerged, quietly and discreetly, seeking not notoriety, but dominance. This was Monopoly Market, a platform that would quickly rise to prominence, attracting a different breed of criminal, one driven not by ideology, but by cold, hard profit. Unlike its predecessors, Monopoly Market shunned the limelight, opting instead for a low-key approach, prioritizing operational security and discretion above all else. The administrators of Monopoly Market understood that longevity in the treacherous world of the dark web required more than just technological prowess. It demanded an understanding of the psychology of its users. They recognized that criminals, particularly those involved in high-stakes drug trafficking, craved stability, reliability, and a sense of security that had eluded previous marketplaces. Monopoly Market aimed to provide just that, a haven where transactions could be conducted with minimal risk and maximum efficiency. The marketplace's design reflected this commitment to discretion. Gone were the flashy graphics, the bold pronouncements, the overt attempts to attract attention. Monopoly Market's interface was clean, functional, and minimalist, prioritizing ease of use and anonymity over aesthetics. It was a platform built for business, not bravado. This understated approach proved to be a winning formula. Word of Monopoly Market's stability and security spread quickly through the dark web's clandestine channels, attracting a growing number of vendors and buyers seeking a reliable platform for their illicit activities. As its user base expanded, so too did its reputation as a marketplace that valued discretion, professionalism, and above all, the bottom line. Monopoly Market's reputation attracted high-level drug traffickers dealing in kilograms of narcotics. The platform's specialization in synthetic opioids, particularly fentanyl, was a major draw. Fentanyl's low production costs and high potency made it attractive for traffickers. Monopoly Market offered bulk discounts, escrow services, and shipping guidance. The marketplace fostered a culture of professionalism and discretion. Monopoly Market's success led to a false sense of security among its users. Vendors became less cautious, using real names and unsecured networks. Administrators believed their fortress was impenetrable. This complacency and arrogance would be their undoing. Law enforcement tracked their every move, exploiting vulnerabilities. Monopoly Market's downfall lay in its digital infrastructure. The central server hosted the marketplace, processed transactions, and stored sensitive data. Administrators used encryption, anonymization, and Tor network for security. Transactions were conducted using cryptocurrencies for anonymity. A single critical error could bring the entire operation down. Cybercrime investigators tracked Monopoly Market for months. They followed money trails, analyzed communication patterns, and identified key players. Small cracks appeared in the marketplace's security. Investigators pieced together minor breaches to form a damning picture. The noose was tightening around Monopoly Market. A server administrator's error exposed a crucial server. Investigators quickly downloaded data from the exposed server. The data provided unprecedented insights into Monopoly Market. The marketplace was now teetering on the brink of collapse. The raid was imminent. Data from the exposed server was a goldmine for investigators. Analysts sifted through years of transactions and communications. They mapped out the criminal network, identifying key players. The intelligence provided a systemic view of Monopoly Market's operations. It was time to plan the takedown. The investigation demanded a coordinated global response. Law enforcement agencies worldwide pledged their support. A global task force was assembled for Operation SpecTor. The task force established secure communication channels and shared intelligence. The wheels of justice were grinding towards an inevitable confrontation. Operation SpecTor began under Europol's auspices. The first phase focused on intelligence gathering and analysis. Legal teams secured arrest warrants and asset seizure orders. The task force formulated a plan of action. The operation involved simultaneous raids in multiple countries. Monopoly Market continued to operate as normal. Administrators believed in their invincibility. Investigators infiltrated the marketplace's defenses. The day of reckoning was fast approaching. Final preparations were made for the takedown. Undercover agents monitored key targets. cybercrime experts prepared to infiltrate Monopoly Market's servers. The walls were closing in on Monopoly Market. The dark web was about to be illuminated by justice. The day of the takedown dawned like any other, but beneath the veneer of normalcy, a storm was brewing. In the pre-dawn hours, as the world slept, law enforcement agencies in multiple countries prepared to unleash Operation SpecTor, a carefully orchestrated symphony of coordinated raids, arrests, and seizures that would send shockwaves through the dark web. The element of surprise was total. Suspects, lulled into a false sense of security by years of operating with impunity, were caught off guard as heavily armed tactical teams stormed their homes, offices, and hidden server rooms. The raids were swift and decisive, a testament to the meticulous planning and coordination of the global task force. Computers were seized, servers taken offline, and financial accounts frozen. Suspects, many still in their pajamas, were apprehended before they could destroy evidence or alert their co-conspirators. The digital fortress that had once seemed impenetrable had been breached, its defenses overwhelmed by the sheer scale and coordination of the operation. As news of the takedown spread, panic rippled through the dark web. Marketplaces went offline, forums went dark, and users scrambled to erase their digital footprints. The illusion of anonymity, so carefully cultivated, was shattered. Operation SpecTor had sent a clear message. The dark web was not a lawless frontier, and those who sought to exploit its anonymity for criminal gain would be found and brought to justice. The success of Operation SpecTor hinged on meticulous timing and coordinated execution. Across 3 continents, a synchronized wave of raids commenced under the cover of darkness. The operation, dubbed Dawn Raid, targeted the highest-level players in Monopoly Market's hierarchy, the administrators, lead vendors, and key facilitators who had orchestrated a global criminal enterprise from behind the veil of anonymity. In the United States, FBI and DEA agents armed with no-knock warrants and backed by SWAT teams descended upon unsuspecting suburban homes and luxury apartments, the seemingly mundane facades concealing sophisticated criminal operations. Doors were breached, flashbangs detonated, and suspects apprehended before they could react, let alone destroy evidence. Across the Atlantic, in cities and towns throughout Europe, similar scenes unfolded. German Bundeskriminalamt officers, working in tandem with their counterparts in the Netherlands, Austria, and the United Kingdom, moved swiftly and decisively, securing residences, seizing computers and mobile devices, and apprehending individuals long considered untouchable. The raids were not limited to the physical world. Simultaneously, cybercrime units launched their own offensive in the digital realm. Working remotely, they infiltrated Monopoly Market's servers, seizing control of the marketplace's infrastructure, and securing vital evidence before it could be deleted or encrypted. The speed and precision of the operation left no room for escape. Suspects, accustomed to the anonymity of the dark web, found themselves face to face with the consequences of their actions, their digital fortresses breached, their illusions of impunity shattered. As the physical raids unfolded, a parallel operation was underway in the digital realm. Cybercrime experts, working around the clock, began the painstaking process of analyzing the terabytes of data seized from Monopoly Market's servers and the personal devices of those arrested. The information gleaned from these digital dragnets would prove crucial in identifying co-conspirators, tracing the flow of illicit funds, and building a comprehensive case against those who had sought to profit from the misery of others. Forensic analysts, utilizing sophisticated software and investigative techniques, combed through chat logs, transaction records, and encrypted communications, piecing together the intricate web of relationships and transactions that underpinned Monopoly Market's operations. They traced cryptocurrency payments through a labyrinth of wallets and exchanges, following the money trail to uncover the real-world identities behind the anonymous online personas. The digital evidence was overwhelming. Years of criminal activity, meticulously documented and stored on servers believed to be impenetrable, were now laid bare. The data revealed not only the scope and scale of Monopoly Market's illicit activities, but also the callous disregard for human life that fueled its profits. The investigation uncovered detailed records of drug transactions, including customer orders, vendor reviews, and shipping information. In some cases, investigators found evidence linking specific transactions to overdoses and deaths, highlighting the devastating real-world consequences of the marketplace's operations. The Digital Dragnet extended beyond Monopoly Market itself. Investigators analyzed social media accounts, online forums, and even gaming platforms, searching for any digital footprint that could connect individuals to the marketplace or provide further evidence of their criminal activities. The coordinated raids and digital dragnets of Operation SpecTor yielded an unprecedented haul of illicit goods, weapons, and cash, tangible evidence of the scale and reach of Monopoly Market's criminal enterprise. The sheer volume of contraband seized sent a clear message to the Darkweb'S criminal underworld. The long arm of the law had caught up, and the consequences of operating in the shadows were about to become very real. In total, law enforcement agencies seized over 850 kilograms of drugs including fentanyl, heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine, and MDMA. These narcotics, enough to poison hundreds of thousands of people, were destined for communities across the globe, fueling addiction, overdoses, and death. The seizure of such a vast quantity of drugs represented a significant disruption to the global drug trade, striking a blow against the criminal organizations that profited from the misery of others. In addition to the drugs, authorities confiscated over 117 firearms including handguns, rifles, and even explosives. The presence of such a large cache of weapons highlighted the inherent danger posed by dark web marketplaces, where criminals could anonymously purchase the tools of violence with relative ease. The seizure of these weapons undoubtedly prevented countless acts of violence and saved innocent lives. Perhaps most tellingly, Operation SpecTor resulted in the seizure of over 50 million euros in cash and cryptocurrencies, the ill-gotten gains of a vast criminal enterprise. Stacks of cash, hidden in secret compartments and buried underground, were unearthed alongside cryptocurrency wallets containing millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin and other digital currencies. The seizure of these assets represented a major financial blow to Monopoly Market and its operators, dismantling their criminal infrastructure and stripping them of the resources they needed to operate. As investigators delved deeper into the lives of those apprehended during Operation SpecTor, a chilling tapestry of criminality began to emerge. The individuals behind the anonymous usernames were not simply faceless figures operating in the digital ether. They were real people, with families, jobs, and often disturbing double lives. The investigation exposed a cross-section of society, from tech-savvy teenagers to seasoned criminals, all drawn to the dark web's promise of anonymity and the lure of easy profits. Among those arrested were individuals from all walks of life: students, teachers, business professionals, and even law enforcement officers. Some were driven by greed, seeking to supplement their incomes or fund lavish lifestyles. Others were motivated by addiction, using the dark web to obtain drugs or finance their own habits. Still, others seemed to revel in the thrill of operating outside the law, finding a perverse sense of community and purpose in the dark corners of the internet. The investigation revealed that many of those involved in Monopoly Market had no prior criminal records, highlighting the ease with which seemingly ordinary individuals could be drawn into the world of online crime. The anonymity of the dark web, coupled with the perceived low risk of detection, created a dangerous illusion of invincibility, emboldening individuals to engage in activities they would never consider in the offline world. However, the investigation also exposed a darker side to Monopoly Market, one that extended beyond mere profiteering. Authorities uncovered evidence of child exploitation material being shared on the platform, as well as links to organized crime groups involved in human trafficking, arms dealing, and even murder-for-hire plots. The dark web, it seemed, had become a breeding ground for the most depraved and dangerous elements of society, a haven for those who sought to exploit and profit from the suffering of others. In the wake of Operation SpecTor's dramatic raids and arrests, the wheels of justice began to turn, albeit slowly and deliberately. The sheer volume of evidence gathered, coupled with the international scope of the investigation, presented unique legal challenges, requiring close cooperation between law enforcement and judicial authorities across multiple continents. Prosecutors, faced with mountains of digital evidence and a complex web of international laws and treaties, worked tirelessly to build their cases against those apprehended during the operation. They meticulously documented financial transactions, analyzed communication logs, and interviewed witnesses and informants, seeking to establish a clear chain of evidence that would stand up in court. The legal process, often slow and cumbersome, was further complicated by the international nature of the investigation. Extradition requests were filed, mutual legal assistance treaties invoked, and jurisdictional disputes navigated as countries sought to hold those responsible for Monopoly Market accountable for their crimes. Despite the challenges, the message sent by Operation SpecTor was clear. The dark web was not a lawless frontier where criminals could operate with impunity. The coordinated efforts of international law enforcement agencies, coupled with the tenacity of prosecutors and the unwavering pursuit of justice, demonstrated that even in the darkest corners of the internet, the long arm of the law would eventually reach those who sought to exploit and profit from the suffering of others. The impact of Operation SpecTor reverberated throughout the dark web like a seismic shock. News of the takedown spread like wildfire through the clandestine forums and marketplaces that had long operated with a sense of impenetrable secrecy. The arrests, the seizures, the sheer scale of the operation, it sent a collective shiver down the spines of even the most hardened cybercriminals. The illusion of anonymity, the very foundation upon which the dark web's criminal underworld was built, lay shattered. In the immediate aftermath of the operation, a palpable sense of fear and paranoia gripped the dark web. Marketplaces, once bustling with activity, went dark overnight. Their digital storefronts replaced with ominous messages warning of law enforcement infiltration, or simply vanishing into the ether, their servers wiped clean. Forum threads, once alive with chatter about the latest exploits and illicit goods, fell silent as users, fearing that their every keystroke was being monitored, retreated into the shadows. The takedown of Monopoly Market, a platform long considered too big to fail, sent a clear message: no one was untouchable. The myth of the dark web as a lawless frontier, a digital Wild West where criminals could operate with impunity, had been exposed. The reality was far more sobering. Law enforcement agencies, once perceived as slow-footed and outmatched in the digital realm, had proven their ability to adapt, to innovate, and to strike at the heart of even the most sophisticated criminal enterprises operating in the shadows. The digital aftershocks of Operation SpecTor extended far beyond the immediate closure of marketplaces and the silencing of forums. Trust, a precious commodity in the inherently distrustful world of the dark web, evaporated overnight. Vendors, fearing that their buyers might be undercover agents or informants, became reluctant to engage in transactions. Buyers, suspicious of every link and every message, worried that they were walking into a trap. The dark web, once a thriving ecosystem of interconnected marketplaces and communities, had fractured into a fragmented and paranoid landscape. While Operation SpecTor represented a significant victory in the ongoing battle against cybercrime, it was not a decisive blow. The dark web, like the Hydra of Greek mythology, possessed a remarkable ability to regenerate, to adapt, and to evolve in the face of adversity. Driven by the relentless forces of supply and demand, new marketplaces emerged from the ashes of their predecessors, each iteration seeking to address the vulnerabilities exposed by previous law enforcement operations. The new breed of dark web marketplaces that emerged in the wake of Operation SpecTor were characterized by a heightened emphasis on operational security and a decentralized approach to infrastructure. Administrators, acutely aware of the risks posed by centralized servers and traditional communication channels, adopted strategies designed to make their platforms more resilient to law enforcement infiltration and takedowns. One notable trend was the adoption of blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies, not just for transactions, but also for user authentication and platform governance. By leveraging the decentralized and pseudonymous nature of blockchain, these marketplaces sought to obfuscate their operations and make it more difficult for law enforcement to track down administrators and users. Another trend was the increasing use of end-to-end encryption and secure messaging apps, ensuring that communications between vendors and buyers remained private and secure. These platforms often incorporated features designed to enhance anonymity, such as self-destructing messages and encrypted voice and video calls. The dark web, much like the internet itself, was in a constant state of flux, a digital arms race where criminals and law enforcement agencies alike sought to outmaneuver and outsmart each other. As law enforcement agencies developed new tools and techniques to combat cybercrime, the dark web's criminal element adapted, innovating, and evolving their methods in a perpetual game of cat and mouse. Operation SpecTor marked a turning point in the fight against cybercrime, ushering in a new era of cyber warfare characterized by increased sophistication, international cooperation, and the blurring of lines between the physical and digital worlds. Law enforcement agencies, recognizing that the dark web was not simply a technological challenge but a complex social and criminal ecosystem, began to adopt new strategies and tactics, moving beyond traditional investigative methods to combat the ever-evolving threat posed by cybercriminals. One key area of focus was the development of advanced cyber investigative techniques, including network analysis, malware analysis, and cryptocurrency tracing. Law enforcement agencies invested heavily in training and technology, equipping their investigators with the skills and tools necessary to navigate the complexities of the dark web, to follow the digital trail of evidence, and to identify and apprehend those responsible for cybercrime. Recognizing that cybercrime transcended national borders, law enforcement agencies around the world strengthened their partnerships and collaborations, sharing intelligence, coordinating investigations, and working together to dismantle criminal networks operating in the digital shadows. International organizations such as Interpol and Europol played a crucial role in facilitating these collaborations, providing platforms for communication, coordination, and the exchange of best practices. The fight against cybercrime extended beyond the realm of law enforcement. Tech companies, recognizing their role in providing the platforms and tools that facilitated both legitimate and criminal activities online, stepped up their efforts to combat illicit activities on their platforms. They invested in content moderation, developed algorithms to detect and remove illegal content, and worked with law enforcement agencies to identify and apprehend those engaged in cybercrime. The battle for control of the digital realm had just begun. As technology continued to advance at an exponential pace, the line between the physical and digital worlds blurred, and the battleground expanded, encompassing everything from the smartphones in our pockets to the critical infrastructure that underpinned our societies. The stakes had never been higher. Operation SpecTor, for all its success, did not mark the end of the dark web or the criminal enterprises that thrived within its hidden corners. It was, however, a watershed moment, a stark demonstration that the perceived anonymity of the dark web was an illusion, a dangerous fantasy that could be shattered by the coordinated efforts of law enforcement agencies around the world. The dark web, much like the mythical Hydra, possessed a remarkable ability to regenerate, to adapt, and to evolve in the face of adversity. For every marketplace shut down, a new one would inevitably emerge, its creators learning from the mistakes of their predecessors, seeking to stay one step ahead of the digital dragnet. In the years following Operation SpecTor, the dark web continued to evolve, morphing into a more fragmented and decentralized ecosystem. Centralized marketplaces, once the primary hubs of illicit activity, gave way to smaller, more agile platforms, often operating on a peer-to-peer basis, making them more difficult to infiltrate and dismantle. The use of advanced encryption, anonymization tools, and cryptocurrencies became even more widespread, adding layers of complexity to investigations and requiring law enforcement agencies to constantly adapt their tactics and invest in new technologies. The dark web, much like the internet itself, was a reflection of human nature, a digital microcosm of the real world with all its complexities, contradictions, and capacity for both good and evil. It was a realm of shadows and whispers, where the lines between freedom and oppression, anonymity and accountability were often blurred. It was a place where individuals could explore their darkest desires, where criminals could operate with perceived impunity, and where the battle for control of the digital realm raged on. A perpetual game of cat and mouse between those who sought to exploit its anonymity and those who sought to uphold the law. While Operation SpecTor may not have eradicated the dark web or the criminal enterprises that operated within its hidden corners, it did serve as a stark reminder that the digital world was not a lawless frontier. It demonstrated that the actions of individuals in the digital realm had real-world consequences, and that those who sought to exploit the anonymity of the dark web for criminal gain would eventually be held accountable for their actions. The fight against cybercrime, much like the technology that underpinned it, was a constantly evolving battleground. As the dark web continued to adapt and evolve, so too did the methods employed by law enforcement agencies tasked with policing its shadowy corners. The future of this fight would be shaped by the relentless pace of technological innovation, the increasing sophistication of cybercriminals, and the growing need for international cooperation in an interconnected digital world. One of the key challenges facing law enforcement agencies was the increasing use of advanced encryption and anonymization tools by cybercriminals. Decrypting encrypted communications and tracing transactions conducted in cryptocurrencies required specialized expertise, sophisticated software, and often lengthy legal processes. Law enforcement agencies would need to invest heavily in training, technology, and partnerships with private industry to keep pace with the evolving tactics of cybercriminals. Another challenge was the decentralized nature of the dark web, which transcended national borders and legal jurisdictions. Cybercriminals could operate from anywhere in the world, using servers scattered across multiple countries, making it difficult for law enforcement agencies to track them down and bring them to justice. Effective international cooperation, including the sharing of intelligence, the coordination of investigations, and the harmonization of legal frameworks, would be crucial in combating cybercrime in an increasingly interconnected world. The fight against cybercrime was not just a technological challenge, it was a human one. Cybercriminals were not faceless entities operating in the digital ether. They were real people, motivated by greed, ideology, or a desire to inflict harm. Understanding their motivations, their methods, and the social and economic factors that contributed to their activities was essential in developing effective strategies to combat cybercrime. The future of the fight against cybercrime would require a multifaceted approach, one that combined technological innovation, international cooperation, and a deep understanding of the human factors that drove individuals to engage in criminal activities online. It was a fight that transcended borders, disciplines, and ideologies, a fight that would require the collective efforts of governments, law enforcement agencies, private industry, and citizens around the world to ensure that the digital realm remained a safe and secure space for all.